ready to go?
Yep. I'll be right back.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Calling to order the Klamath County Board of Commissioners in our county council meeting. Today is June 5th, 2024. It's, let's go 2:05 in the afternoon. I'm Dave Hensley. I'm joined by Commissioner Minty, Commissioner DeGroot. We've got Deputy Brown from the Klamath County Sheriff's Office with us today. We'll introduce you in just a minute, sir. Before we get started, let's take a moment. Commissioners, have you looked at the minutes from our meeting last time?
Yes,
Look okay? They look good to me too. Sandy, I think you did those. Those stand approved. Thank you so much for your work. And let's dive right into the livestock hearing. Before we do, are there any commissioners that have any conflicts of interest, ex parte contact, or abstentions of the proposed actions?
No.
I do not either. So we're going to start with you, Deputy Brown, and walk us through the report, and we'll dive into the rest of the hearing procedure.
Okay, so Monday, May the 20th, 2024, about 1200 hours, dispatched to 4709 Bisbee Street for a report of multiple dogs actively engaged in chasing and killing goats in a back pasture. Got to the scene, found 4 dogs were still inside the fenced pasture behind the house. Could see initially at least one dead goat with its head hanging out the shelter, several other goats clearly injured. All dogs appeared to have blood on them. Owner of the goats, who's sitting to my left right now, identified as Andrew Gertman, did not recognize the dogs, had not seen them before, and he had already counted up 3 dead goats and several that had been chased off of the property. We were able to secure 2 dogs right away. There was 2 blue heelers, 1 black pit, and 1 black and white spaniel. One of the heelers identified as Gunner, owned by Winter Jarman. Second dog is the black pit, identified as Leah, owned by Matthew Foley. The second smaller heeler and the spaniel took off running. We were not able to catch them initially. As we were working through the scene, a gentleman by the name of David Jarman showed up in the street looking for the dogs. He owned the smaller heeler, who he identified as Marley, and he had already caught that dog and it was in the truck with him. The black and white spaniel was identified as Thunder. Mr. Jarman advised that that was the name of the dog, even though everybody claims that it's a stray. It had been hanging out with the Foleys at the Foleys property for the last month, so we'll get into that part a little bit later. I explained the livestock process to Mr. Jarman, and he actually surrendered his dog Marley right there at the scene. So further investigation, lots of injuries, 3 dead total goats. There was 4 boar goats. Am I saying that right? Is it boar goats or boar?
Four.
4 goats. So 4 boar goats and 8 Nigerian dwarfs. Out of those, 1 female boar and 2 Nigerians are the ones that were deceased. The other 9 all had various injuries and were taken to Shasta View Animal Hospital for treatment. So we got the dogs down to the shelter, and later that day, Winter Jarman actually came down and identified the dogs. Initially signed the owner's surrender for her dog, and then that's how we got the story that the spaniel was a stray but had come to live on their property. So they had essentially been taking care of it, but not necessarily wanting to claim the ownership of it. So it's kind of iffy, if you ask me. So yeah, long story short, they all ended up, can we go to pictures? They all ended up signing the surrender form for the 3 dogs. The 4th dog is the spaniel Thunder that they're not claiming as theirs, but they've been taking care of it for a month. So there's 1 goat. You can see it's got blood on it, some injuries. There's a dead goat hanging out. That was one of the first ones we saw. Inside. So you can see it's all pretty well fenced and gated. There's no reason for the dogs to, should have been able to get in, but they did somehow. So this dog, I believe, is Marley. You can see the blood all over its face and snout. All over the body. This would be the black pit. You can see the blood staining on the rear, on the shoulder. That's not a very good picture, but you can still kind of see that it's on the throat. There's a better picture. So this is Thunder, black and white spaniel that nobody wants to claim. This would be Marley, I think. Yeah, no, not Marley. This would be Gunner. You can see not quite as noticeable, but you can see the tinge of red over its coat and face. There's some more goat pictures. More goat punctures. So this is a goat that I think survived, has some pretty serious trauma.
Yeah, he does. That's where he breeds it out of his nose now.
That's probably the
We
gnarliest
call him
one.
Snort.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
And then the other one, they had to put a jaw and wire her jaw back.
So then we've got some receipts for some expenses that they inquired to care for the goats, and then the vet bill, and we'll cover that in the restitution. But it, yeah. So we broke it down for all three people because there's 3 different dog owners, even though there's 4 dogs. So we felt like the most appropriate way was just to divide it by 3, because they're all responsible essentially. The 4th one, the unclaimed dog, we weren't really totally sure what to do with. I was gonna leave it in y'all's court, if you want to include the 4th dog, even though we don't have a true owner. I lean towards, they've been taking care of it for a month, and so I think it's Winter Jarman's responsibility, Winter and Matt Foley, who reside together. They've been taking care of it for the last month, even though they claim that it's not their dog. So if you guys wanna just, if you don't want to include that in the restitution and fines and fees, I'm good with that. If you want to include it and we can add it evenly between Matt and Jarman, I'm good with that too. The dog was not microchipped. We don't have any reports of it as being a lost dog, so I have no way to actually identify who actually owned it. And like I said, they did owner surrender all of them, but they were intending to come to the meeting as far as I knew last week, but since they are not here, the fees that we can take off are the microchip fees, the license fees, because they're not gonna get them back if they don't show up. So we can take off the $35 from each one for those fees since they're gonna be owner surrendered. And then for the restitution,
Is the restitution the 1,078.17 times 4 or times 3? So I see it on all 4. What's
Yeah.
the total restitution requested by the goat owner?
I had it in an email that I sent to Lee, and she didn't throw on her kind of the way that I wanted it to.
Are you thinking to take this off and divide?
It should be divided by 3 for the total restitution, but I mean,
Because I have an equal amount on all 4 of these.
right.
So I just want to make sure, is it $4,300 or is it 3,000 and change?
So here's what I was going for.
We'll give you an opportunity in a second, okay?
The goat owner is asking for $500 for the dead boar and $350 for the Nigerian dwarfs. They have the right to ask for twice that in restitution, which he has asked for. So that would be $2,400 total for just the dead animals. The vet
Okay.
bill was $743.83.
Okay.
The 2 receipts totaled, there was one for $67 and one for $23.68, which makes a total restitution amount of $834 for the vet bill and the supplies. So then total restitution altogether between the vet bill, the receipts and the dead animals should be $3,234.51 divided by 3, which is where we came up with
That's your
the,
1,000. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is where we
So,
came
yeah,
up with the
scratch that
1980.
one off, right?
Deputy Brown, quick question. They're marked as with the violation of chasing. And we
That
did
might
see
work.
killing though.
Yeah, it
Was
should-
that because you're not
It should be,
sure?
no, it should be
who?
killing.
Okay. And then do you, I mean, I saw dogs with evidence on them. Do you believe all of the dogs were part of all of the killing, or was there certain dogs?
Yeah, I mean, because without any eyewitness, you just have to assume that they're all involved in some way, shape, or form. They've all got blood on them.
Okay.
I can't prove, I know at least 2 of them in their feces had evidence that came out through their system. So we know at least 2 of them were.
And then would we have any other physical evidence, like hair in the mouth or?
No, the only thing that we can rely on is when they poop it out.
Mr. Gertman, do you have anything you'd like to add? If so, sir, need to get you sworn in with staff.
Not really, no.
So I think that's where we're at. The only fee, like I said, the fees that we can take off, since they're not here to beg for their dogs back, is we can take off the $35 for the microchip fees and the license fees per person.
Which would leave you $455 per. Yes? Yes. No.
No.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just take off the 35 from the total amount at the bottom.
Well, we have to itemize it,
I think it's 305 if you're looking.
305. But this one is more because $200 for third impound not wearing license, right?
$455 for that.
So this one is $455 because there was none there anyway. This one's $305 and this one's $305.
Does anybody else have any further questions of Deputy Brown? If so, now's your time. If not, I'm gonna close the hearing so we can start our deliberations.
Did we want to just not worry about the 4th dog that we don't technically have an owner for?
We'll get to that in deliberations, I think.
So they're all surrendered though, all 4
Yes.
dogs?
Well, 3 is because we don't have a surrender for the unclaimed dog because they just all said,
Right.
not my problem. Right.
So where would that dog be?
I think
Well,
It's,
He's in custody.
yeah,
Okay.
he's still in custody, so what'll happen is after we're done today, he'll probably just get euthanized because he'll be over his whole period.
Any
So-
other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner.
no, I just want to clarify, Deputy Brown, in your conversations with the 3 dog owners, it is your opinion that the dog that was unclaimed, Thunder, as being been cared for a period of time that would, in your opinion, say that they were responsible for that dog, and that would be Winter Jarman and Matt Foley. Is that correct?
That is my decision based on my experience in doing this job for 18 years and figuring out who's responsible for what. They say, yeah, we don't technically own it, but we've been taking care of it for a month. To me, you're responsible for that dog. That dog has been hanging out with you for a month, and it took off running with your dogs to partake in this. As far as I'm concerned, you're responsible for it, but would that hold up in a court of law? I don't.
Thank you.
and these dogs, this is your first interaction with these dogs?
Yes.
Seeing no other questions for Deputy Brown, are you sure, Mr. Gerben, you don't have anything you want to add? If so, sir, I will give you an opportunity.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing and we'll enter into our deliberation portion of the hearing.
So I just have a quick question for council. So to the dog that was unclaimed but being housed and cared for a month by 2 of these dog owners, are they accepting responsibility for this dog in that case, that they have been housing and caring for that dog?
I think you would go with Deputy Brown's assumption that they admitted they've been feeding, housing. I presume treating them like the other two dogs. That's really a decision for the board is, it's obviously unlicensed, not licensed in their name, but their other dogs were unlicensed, correct?
Correct.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
It's good, if we have other cases of unlicensed dogs, we don't necessarily have to go through the presumption. I mean, the presumption level's more than 51% in this type of thing. It's not a beyond reasonable doubt 99.9% in your hearings. It's the evidence show more than it doesn't, that they're caring for and owning this dog.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I think that that's an interesting conversation to have, but I don't feel comfortable with it without having proof that they own the dog. That brings me a sense of uncertainty, but I think it's irrelevant because 3 of their dogs killed as livestock, and that total cost, that total burden that needs to go back to the owner is going to be shared by these 3 people, no matter if it was 2, 3, 7, 8, or 9 dogs. So
Yeah, the only difference that it makes is in boarding fees.
Boarding fees and civil penalties.
correct. So they claimed ownership of 3 of them and said one of them's not. I mean, it would have been just as easy, in my opinion, to say I don't own any of them, but they didn't. There's still liability that they own in this, clearly, in my opinion. We haven't made a verdict yet, but to me it seems pretty clear that they are liable.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's where my head was too. And also, if they were going to be trying to get the dogs back and try to kind of save the dogs, then I think it would be more of an issue. But.
Well, maybe start with this. I'll make a motion that in the case of the dog Thunder unclaimed, we find the dog guilty of killing,
If you want to try to do all 4, you'll probably get a second.
as well as Gunner, owned by Winter Jarman, guilty of killing, Marley, owned by David Jarman, guilty of killing, and Leah, owned by Matt Foley, guilty of killing.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor signify with an aye.
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 Chair votes aye, and that motion passes.
I will next make a motion that 1 dog is unclaimed and the other 3 have been surrendered, and that the dogs be humanely put to death.
Well, I'll second. But weren't the owners I don't know if requesting euthanization is the right term, but the owners were suggesting that, weren't they?
Well, they were wanting the dogs back. I said no, because they'd already signed to surrender them that day. They had already said, take the dogs. So by signing, they don't have any right to the dog anymore at all. But they kept pestering me over the next few days. Well, we kind of changed our mind. The dog, it's my family dog. It's never done this before. We really want to get it back. And I said, I'll tell you what, that's fine, but I'm not going to say yes. I said, we will continue to pile up the boarding fees then, and we will keep the dogs alive, because otherwise they would have already been euthanized. And so she understood that the boarding fees were going to continue to rack up to try to get this dog back. And I said, I'm going to put it on the commissioners, on you guys at the hearing, to make a decision if they get the dogs back or not. But they have to show up to the hearing. They didn't show up. So.
And they understood that they needed to come and sort of advocate for the dogs to get them back.
Correct.
So let's do this. We have a motion and a second, and we open it up for discussion.
Well, I think I need to amend, after reading a little bit further, and some help from County Council, thank you, that we determined that the dogs have been surrendered, and also find that due to the heinous nature of the killing, that the dogs be euthanized.
I'll second the amendment.
We have a motion as amended and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, would that be your request of the board, that the board?
Yeah, just because growing up, I mean, if we had a dog that killed something, like it's different if it just goes and kills it, but like when I showed the vet the picture of that big boar goat, they ripped its brain off. I mean, it's probably gonna do it again. My dad would dispose of the dog. Whether it was our own cows, whatever it was, my dad disposed of the dog. Just because there's a good chance it's gonna do it again.
Deputy Brown, did you have an opportunity to look at the enclosure where the dogs were housed?
No, so I don't know how familiar you are with this particular property, but
I'm
they
not.
live at the 541 garage on Altamont. So it's on the south end of Altamont on the east side of the road. We go there a lot as the sheriff's office. But I've never been there beyond their garage space where they tear things apart to see if they have a place to keep dogs. So I don't have any knowledge of how they kept it.
Was there any conversation between you and the owners as to how they got out?
No, there might have been, but I don't recall what that was off the top of my head.
And have we ever, I think I know this answer, but just want to ask one more time, is there any history of these dogs being out in the past?
No, I don't think we have any history with them at all.
Is there any history?
I feel like one of them might have been impounded, but I'm not completely sure which one that was.
Maybe not necessarily the dogs, Deputy Brown, but is there any history with the dog owners just
Yeah.
having dogs out?
Ooh. History with the owners,
Or animal
yes,
violations?
but animal violations, I don't believe so. I'm not sure.
Who was the lady that called me that day?
That was Winter.
Yeah, she was saying something about her dog, like 2 weeks ago, she called the sheriff's department, killed
So-
some chickens.
You gotta
Okay.
swear you in, okay? If you're gonna add
Oh, I was
anything
just-
to the
yeah.
conversation,
I
let me
can-
swear you in real quick,
Might as well
okay?
do it.
Yeah, so just stand up, raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear the testimony you give today shall be the truth to the best of your knowledge.
Yes.
Please state your name for the record.
Oh, Andrew Gertman. But she had said that the dog, they called the sheriff's department a few weeks before that, or a couple weeks before that. The dog killed some chickens. They wanted them to take the dog. They never took the dog. I'm really sorry the dog got out, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not gonna say you. I mean, you're my kid's goat since they were his babies.
Do you remember that?
Even the vet was surprised the goat know its name.
Yeah,
To
so
walk
that-
through there and they know their name. They're smart. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
so
spent
that
time
was
with them.
actually the dog Gunner, owned by Winter. That rings a bell that he said that now. She actually did call, but it's a low priority call. The deputies didn't have time and I wasn't working. So nobody came and actually picked up the dog. But that was like 10 days prior that she was trying to surrender this dog because it had killed her own chickens. So I mean, she had 10 days to bring the dog to us if she really wanted to surrender it because it has a history of killing chickens. But,
Is there any way to confirm via CAD that she made that call?
oh yeah, I did.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Just doing some
Okay, so the amended motion on the table that's been seconded is that the dogs are euthanized due to the heinous nature of the incident. And you said something else, I feel like, Commissioner DeCrute.
And they've been surrendered.
And they've been surrendered, thank you. And that motion has been seconded. Is there any further discussion before I call the motion? All those in favor signify with an aye.
Right.
Chair votes aye, and that motion passes. You back done with your math?
Yeah,
Since you're
I got
doing
it.
I'm not gonna start doing math. I'll trust you.
So for the dog Gunner, I'd make a motion that we assess impound and boarding fees of $455, a civil penalty pursuant to ORS 609 of $500, and restitution to the victim of $1,078.17 for a total of $2,033.17.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that motion passes.
I'll make a motion in regard to the dog Marley that we impose animal control fees, being impound and boarding fees, in the total of $305. Civil penalty pursuant to Order 609 of $500. Restitution to the victim of $1,078.17 for a total of $1,883.17.
So the motion and a second. Discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that motion passes.
And then I'll make a motion in regard to the dog Leah that we impose impound and boarding fees in the amount of $305, a civil penalty pursuant to ORS 609 of $500, and restitution to the victim of $1,078.17 for a total of $1,883.17.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and that motion passes. We don't have anything else on our agenda. I'm very sorry that that has occurred. As soon as I close this meeting and adjourn us, Deputy Brown will take a couple of minutes and walk you through what that restitution looks like, and how you'll start receiving those funds and whatnot.
So I'm good to go, or do I wait, or
Yeah,
what?
just wait for him for just a couple seconds. Anything else?
Have a better day.
Thanks.
All right, you guys, with that, we are adjourned at